Previously on the Seventh Valkyrie, Waela and Myrnst captained their vessel south into an archipelago teeming with life, where a strange island beckons in the cool sea. What does this place have to do with Cyrus's gift? Find out now on the Seventh Valkyrie. Altogether, it was a sensual rainbow, and even though I could feel Myrnst stop, standing over me as he arrived, I was content to just let my eyes close and melt. "How do you feel?" he asked. "It feels like home," I answered, breathing deeply but not opening my eyes. He took a seat on the sand, leaning against the rock beneath me. "Oh, then maybe it is true that you are a Valguardian," he said. "I'll admit, when May told me, I was not sure I believed." I opened my eyes. "She told you?" I asked. She said I wasn't supposed to say anything." "I would have found it out as part of the process," Ernst said. "She just moved us along that path a little more quickly. Rest assured, May is an old friend." He took a deep breath in, looked around us, and let out a satisfied sigh. "This island is a place where all energies come together," he said, "and I find it delicious to be here. From the core of the earth, the volcanic rock brings up the essence of fire. From the land beyond us, the windswept flowers in the layer of topsoil offer the essence of the earth. From the essence of the sky above, the sun and the light and the wind intermingle against the essence of the ocean that laps all around us. Even the frigid currents of the ice and the rich jewels of the deep deserts mingle here. This is not the only place like this," he said, "but it is the closest terrain, and I think it is beautiful. So whenever I am tasked with testing those with the gift, this is the spot that I choose." I sat up, looking around us. I guess that was the reason for the rainbow of senses here. How do people usually feel here?" I asked. "That depends on the person," Myrnst answered. "Some linger in the water, others on the shore. Some climb up the mountain or search for where the lava flows. Some come closer to me, or to Waela, or find a spot to sit among the wildflowers. You're the first I've seen come here where everything mingles, leaving nothing quite beneath and nothing to the forefront. For you to say that this place, this spot, feels like home, well, it would make a lot of sense." "Valguardia is a lot like this," I said, getting a raised eyebrow from Ernst. He nodded for me to continue, and I patted my hand along the rock, feeling it beneath me. "It's, colorful in the same way," I said. "I don't know how much May told you about my story, but, well, I don't actually remember much of Valguardia at all, except bits and pieces. It's not until something makes me remember that I can recall anything, and, well, for all that, this is the most I've felt at home since I've been in Edera. And I guess that, Myrnst ran another hand through his hair and then ruffled his beard. "Is everything okay?" I asked. Yes, he said. "You're a strange one, certainly. Your energy is familiar, yet entirely foreign, which makes sense considering the Valguardian's omni-elemental affinity. It's just hard to believe that you even exist, or even that you can exist." He grumbled again, deep in thought, and I pulled my knees into my chest. "Sometimes I feel like me coming here has done more harm than good," I I said. Sometimes I feel like it would have been way easier for everybody if I just hadn't existed here anyway. Myrnst whipped around. Never say that, he said. First of all, there is a value in the spirit and gifts of every living thing, whether they be gifted with a big G or blessed with other gifts. And with that said, your gift is the future. In its own way, it is more beautiful than anything I have ever seen. Like a dream you have dreamed so many times, finally reaching out and pinching you on the nose. Cyrus, do you have any idea what he's saying? I'm not following. I'm not sure I follow, I said. I didn't either. Ah, well, I have spent decades studying the different people of this world, both the gifted and those without. With my love, Waela, I have traveled to the far south, as deep into the firelands as any outsider is allowed to go. We've gone into the rivers of the southern heartland, toured with the sand riders through the wasteland. We have sailed north to the very reaches of the icelands, far further than Reichsberg, and even ventured far from the sea into the place I once called home, the mountains of the sky. And all along the way I have tried to understand these magical things that we call gifts. You see, many people try to classify gifts into the 6 major cultural and elemental groups: fire, ocean, forest, ice, sand, and sky. And yet within each group and within each civilization, there are so many strange diversities and quirks and interminglings of gifts that it's impossible to truly separate them into such simple racial, cultural boundaries. After all, we do not exist in a world untouched by intermingling. My Waela and I are examples of that. And the gifts, the very essence of our connection to that world, well, they are the same thing. What would happen if a Wind Waker had a child with a Wave Master? Waela and I could never agree on whether children were right for us. But what would that child's gift be? Would it be a result of their race or their upbringing? And what about the gifted who live between the nations? Like myself, born to the mountains of sky, but enraptured by the sea and a Wind Waker by birth. Do the Aelic claim power over all the winds? Do the Sestrans claim power over wherever there is water? Do the Uvarans claim every patch of green? I don't know, I said. He had the look of someone who could talk about this subject for hours, and I really wasn't sure if I had much to contribute, as fascinating as this all was. Oh, well, to be honest, I don't think anyone truly knows, he said. At least not in the way that we know that if we set a fire it will burn, or that certain winds will blow a vessel a certain speed, or that certain species of crab mate a certain way. And then there's also the simple fact that with the intermingling of gifts comes the collision of fundamentally different worldviews, which can make things touchy. Hard to study at the very least. Is that why you're here in Reen? I asked. That is indeed one of the allure, and one of the things that makes Nazarene so special, he said. The common enemy of the Eterans brings together a great many vastly different people, and the iron fist of the 4 families ensures that there's no internal conflict. It gives us a place where such strange people can truly see the beauty of other ways of life so different than their own. Do people's gifts change if they spend time with other people? I asked. Oh, of course, Myrnst answered. Though how and why, well, that's as unpredictable as people themselves. I would say that I'm one of the most traveled and experienced minds on the gifts, but so much of our knowledge about them is incomplete. Here's what I can say with confidence. or as much as anyone could. I believe that each gift starts out just as raw and unshaped as the people that it is born into. I believe there are no racial boundaries to a gift, though perhaps there is an affinity. Still, there are no customs, no strict limits to what a gift can accomplish, at least not at first. It is only through our surroundings, the people we meet, the customs we follow, and the way that we learn to view the world. Only in that way do gifts fall into those 6 fundamental essences. Or perhaps the strength of the 6 essences are the very foundation and blueprint for their nations. That would get your head spinning, I'm sure. Which came first, the gifted or the gifts?
Cyrus, I think my head is already spinning. I didn't have to start thinking about that.
Now I myself am what we call a borderlander, Myrnst said. Born in the mountains of sky, and yet with an affinity for the sea. To see someone like yourself, whose affinity has not been constrained by the divides of nation and civilization and upbringing, or seemingly at all by biome and environment, it's fascinating to me. And the stories of what Valguardians could accomplish before the shattering, well, it all fills me with a great hope for what the future might hold.
With an absent-minded gesture through the air, he sent ripples dancing across the water, and then stood, spinning the wind until the water began to rise through it.
To be able to speak to the wind and the wave and the earth, to the flame and the sand and the ice,
he said, as his little cyclone raised a column of water, dragging with it the sand and dirt and even a tiny little minnow up until he reached his eye level.
Well,
he said, releasing the column back into the water and letting it go still.
Well, that would be quite amazing.
How exactly do you do that? I asked. You can make the air move exactly how you want with your gift, even to the point of moving the water and the dirt. Waela was navigating the wave cruiser with aquatic power. It was amazing. I've had people cure me from sickness. I've seen people create fire from thin air. How do you do that? How can I do that? Myrnst was back to stroking his beard.
Now that how is one of the questions I have not yet answered. Every gifted individual has a moment that some call the awakening, when they find their ability, and once it happens, the manipulation of the elements comes as naturally as getting up in the morning. I know that some people have claimed to be able to train for that moment, or to practice for it, try to induce it naturally, or artificially as it were. For each nation, there are rites of passage that have been known to invoke the gift, but for every individual I have spoken to, it was simply a moment that happened. After all, it is incredibly hard to teach something that is as personal as your own soul.
He rocked back and forth on the balls of his feet.
For me, I simply ask the wind to dance, he said. I have found that dancing with a partner can be more powerful, especially if it's someone I love like Waela. But when I'm alone, if I work hard, I can simply dance with the wind. I feel it filling the sail. I feel it guiding the craft where I seek it, and the rest is simply instinct.
I crossed my legs underneath me, watching as he demonstrated. In a moment, he took a deliberate step, surrounded by a glowing outline of warm light. And then with a hum and a sachet, he began to move the wind around him again, gently guiding it. It was beautiful, both for my actual eyes and the ones that could see the world of energy wrapping around him. and without him asking me, I tried as best as I could to mimic what he'd done. I closed my eyes, I felt the power of the wind around me, and I even did a little dance. But all that happened was I just felt silly at the end of it. I tried, I really did, but I was just left frustratedly dancing a jig on the shore of the water for what felt like minutes until Myrnst finally put a hand on my shoulder.
"You're forcing it, young'un," he said gently. "And besides, for you to have the exact same affinity to the exact same element and interact with it in the exact same way would be nearly impossible. Especially since you are Valgardian, and I am not."
I sat back down on the rock.
"I see the weight on your shoulders, and it's not the first time. Late blooming or strange blooming gifts can come with an avalanche of expectations, both personal and from those around you," he said.
Yeah, you can say that again.
"Pathetic, weak, worthless."
The words of the fire were hard to get out of my head, to say the least.
"Well, why don't you go through the moments where you have felt your gift?" he asked. "What were they like?"
It's just all been senses, I said, taking a moment to think about it. Yeah, from the moment I ran into the expanse, it wasn't like I ever felt I could control anything. That's never been the case, but I could just sense stuff more than usual. It's the same here, it was the same in Reen. Apart from feeling things really intensely, I guess I can talk to everyone in their language, and that's fun. I like being able to speak people the way they want to be spoken to, but, and I can sometimes sense danger before it gets too close. But, I don't know, apart from the Star Lake, I've never felt like I had anything special going on. I could just hear and listen, and I think that's something everyone can do.
"Before we get too deep, what happened at the Star Lake?" he asked.
Well, my eyes started glowing. More than usual, I said. And my hands, which they don't ever glow, so that was new. It was like the lake was responding to me somehow. So, I guess there's that. I can be a pretty good nightlight if I'm at the Star Lake. Myrnst patted me on the shoulder.
"To bring it all back, sensing is what we call that ability to feel more than the other humans can. And it's the key building block of every gift. No one has ever awoken an ability without it, because if you are going to control the forces of the elements, you must be able to hear and see them, right?"
I nodded. That made sense.
"Why don't you try sensing?" he said. "Listen to what speaks to you. There is no better place than here to further explore your affinities."
Want to know what happens next? Join us on Patreon to become a hero of Edera and get early access to episodes along with bonus features, director's commentary, and the full Tabta archive. You can also find other ways to support us at the links in the description, and we will see you next week.